We're going to talk about how much we hate Ohio because beating Ohio in Temple in a year is enough for us. And hopefully to help us get over what happened in Miami. Zach and Matt have joined us. Kevin is still working his evening hours, and we're just kind of going through the three of us. It looks like that's what you're going to get for the rest of the season. I was going to try to get our brew peg winner in here for the pick section, but Dave is getting up there in years. The little guy has an early bedtime. And I say that in all joking, knowing that I'm about the same age as Dave, and should have an earlier bedtime than I do. So let's kick it off and bring in Matt and Zach and just kind of say, how was your Saturday?
Mine was honestly pretty sad. The Miami game put me in a pretty, I don't know, I was not in a great mood after that game. That was a rough game, but we're here, ready to fool myself into thinking that we're going to be really good again this year.
You know, that's the worst part about being the fan of a bad team. It's not the losing; it's how the losing kind of taints the rest of your day. I almost rather that was a late game. Like, okay, we lost, go to bed. But for me, Central, that game started before lunch. I mean, Conrad, that our Hawaiian Pacific folks, that game started like at breakfast time. It just good. My team got blown out, and that it was a 2-score loss, but it sure felt like a lot more than that. But Matt, how about you? How was your day?
Well, I was glad to put to bed the idea that if I'm watching, things go well.
Well, it's good, but at the same time, now we don't have a magic bullet. I'd like to have that magic bullet.
Yeah, it was fine. We were a little rushed from the car lot to get back. I was trying to bite my tongue a little, but I didn't miss anything. I watched the game, and that was a choice. I can't remember what I ended up doing with the rest of the day, but it sure wasn't too much time spent dwelling on it. Sunday wasn't too great either for football.
Yeah, for me, the sucky thing is, back in the day when Bull Run first started, I had 2 kids. One of them was 3, and one of them was 1, and they would just sit next to me all day while I watched college football. So UB would lost me. Okay, that's right. Let's put on something else.
Yeah.
But now that's my football.
Yeah.
I watch UB games. It's like, hey, that's done. I got to go clean the garage now. I take one for a run and do piano lessons with the other. And so,
yeah.
Lance, you're my only hope for a good football on Saturday. I did watch the Bills. The Bills were on in Minnesota, which was nice. And
yeah,
dang it, I thought they were going to pull that game out.
I never did.
I was at that game. My girlfriend's cousins where her cousin was the one that got married at halftime. I don't know if you saw that. It was pretty random, but yeah, we were at that game, so that was an interesting time. There's a fight between a Patriots and a Bills fan, like 2 rows in front of us, and the Patriots fan got thrown out, so that was fun to watch.
But... see, so somebody won.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the highlight of the weekend. Yeah,
it really was.
And I gotta say,
the play we saw from Buffalo.
in the UB game, I gotta say, like, not to actually try to be on topic, because I think we've established this here that I'm not doing a good job of staying on top of football things. I didn't even feel that great with the Patterson run that put us up 14-3. I still felt like
it was fluky.
It should have been like, all right, now we've got to leave.
They missed a couple tackles. He broke a tackle, and there were a couple of guys who were out of position on the Miami side.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there are times where even when you have a big play and a scoring drive that, even if it is fluky, you still kind of feel like, all right, now it's 14-3. Like, do we deserve to be up 11? I don't know. But even then, I didn't really feel like we had the momentum in the game.
Look, I'll be honest. I felt like we had it. So you're smarter than I was. I saw the game for what it was at that point, but I didn't see to the depths of just how bad we were. I didn't have a chance to see how bad we were offensively. If you didn't watch the game, really watch the game. Yeah. Miami game plan perfectly for our team.
These were Alex Zordick versus. This was Alex Zordick versus Kent State level, offense. And that's not hyperbole.
No, I mean, I think the difference is, I think when you had Alex Zordich versus Kent State, I think there was a talent. I think the talent was on par between those two teams. I think like we didn't have the firepower we had now.
Sure.
Basically, Miami. I'm guessing they watched the Liberty film and watched a Temple film and said, "What the hell did these teams do differently?" And they basically copied what Liberty did, which was apply a lot of pressure in the box, run blitz from the backside, and know that UB's not going to have a short passing game to break that. Now, we almost did a couple times. There were one or two drop screens that I feel like if we could hit on those, we would have forced Miami to back off a bit, but we kept missing them. And then once we started missing those, it was medium to long range passes that were missing or hitting, and a run game that was pretty much bottled up. Myers couldn't option off because you had the backside blitzer there, and going up the front, it was people were shredding the offensive line on Twitter, and it's like, no, Miami was rushing 7 guys the whole game.
Yeah.
And we had empty backfield passing situations, and Myers was getting killed.
I mean,
I'm surprised he was only sacked twice.
I cannot believe how late in the game we still had empty backfields on Pat. Like, even just one guy, like just
a few times we did have a running back there. It made a difference.
Yeah, it did. It was very clear, when it was just like, oh, this is not going anywhere, except backwards.
I generally don't get into a lot of deep football analysis because
me neither.
I'm more a fan than a student of the game. But I just watched Miami every single play. They were up in the box, and there was a guy coming off the backside in case we took the option part of the read option, and there was nothing there. We went into the half. Now the refs did screw us over mightily on several counts. One was the botched personal foul on the Miami field goal, which would have sent it into the half at 14-10 rather than 14-13.
That's one of the worst ever. Like, just like the Ohio safety did. Was it going to affect the game? No, but just for the sheer objectiveness of it.
Yeah, that play stood out as just really awful. But the thing that more annoyed me was when Buffalo finally got flagged for when Buffalo late in the game got flagged for roughing the passer. That was a ticky-tacky roughing the passer call, and it was at least the equivalent of what Myers had been subjected to multiple times. There were a lot of hits on Myers that I'm okay not calling roughing the passer. They were close, but the way they called it on us, I was kind of okay. Well, if you're going to call that. And then the next series, I think it was either the next series or the series after, Myers got knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
This is looking like it's going to be a DirecTV cable UB season, based partially on how our opponents scheme for us and how they're manned for that. Miami happened to be manned excellently for it. I mean, we outgained them. Our running game was not bad when we used it. We just gave up on it too quick, and we just weren't creative enough with the passing game. We didn't have a passing game ready to attack the way Miami was attacking us, so we didn't make the adjustments at the half either.
Yeah.
Which Conrad has me thinking, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Conrad has me thinking that I'm too hard on this staff for adjustments at the half. We actually have a pretty good record when we have a lead at the half.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's their specialty, but I think I might be a little hard on them for it.
I think it's also, I don't know, I feel like Leipold's a conservative coach, so like when he's able to play with a 2-touchdown lead and, something went right in the first half that we end up 2 touchdowns or whatever, because I think that's his stat. Like, we're undefeated when we have a 14-point lead, or what is it? I don't remember what it is, but like either way, if you're winning the first half and you're in the position to play conservative, I just feel like that plays into his hands. But when things don't go right and he has to play maybe a little bit more aggressively, I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's doing a good job of not blowing games, but he's in that position for a reason. I still don't know where his adjustments are at.
Yeah, the one thing that killed me was I was really hoping to watch UB come out in the second half and run some shorter pass patterns and some, but it seems like 3 guys deep and then an out guy that Myers wasn't getting to. by the time he progressed through all his reads, there was a Miami guy knocking him over. So there were some adjustments that would have been nice, but I'm going to pay more close attention than I have been from now. And all I know is whenever I go to half and it's even remotely close, I panic. But Conrad's analysis is factual, and it says that when UB has a 4-point lead, they generally win, which means you're making adjustments. They're not good enough to make adjustments to come from behind. That's where the staff needs to develop. So that brings us to upcoming opponent, the worst, most awfulest team in the MAC. And I don't mean that on the field. I mean that just as a school in general. Ohio was picked massively as a favorite to win the MAC. It was picked by pretty much everyone to win the East and go out and beat Toledo in the title game. They've not started hot, and their schedule is not Miami difficult, right? I mean, they've played decent teams. They haven't played any real garbage teams other than their FCS game. But I mean, Marshall's not bad. Pitt's pretty good this year. I didn't think I'd say that anytime soon. And Louisiana Lafayette has, I mean, they made Liberty look silly, and we know what Liberty can do. They're 1-3. Zach was quick to point out, Zach, how many players have they lost? I didn't think they had lost as bad as us.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick here when what I wrote down last night when I was looking into it. So I thought it was interesting, I guess, just going into the season, it felt like Ohio was projected to be the runaway favorites. And I think a lot of that was just because their quarterback was coming back, which obviously is big. But then when you look at it, they lost 4 All-MAC first-team players and 2 All-MAC second-team players. And they only return, 2 first-teamers. One is their punter and a second-teamer. So it's not like they're bringing back an overwhelming amount of talent. Aside from their quarterback, they bring 1 first-team player back on the defense. And then on top of that, their top 3 running backs are all out right now. One, it seems, is out indefinitely, and then their second and third string running backs are questionable for the game, it seems. So they have had a lot of turnover. They lost their top 2 receivers and their top 2 running backs from last season, 3 All-MAC offensive linemen. I think their defense is probably supposed to be their strong suit outside their quarterback, but pretty much all of his playmakers and more than half his line is gone from last season. So it's not, I don't know, it just seems like we got hammered for, everybody that we were losing in terms of preseason polls, and Ohio pretty much had the same thing happen. But since they retained the quarterback, it kind of covered some of that up. What we're seeing so far when they're 1-3, that it definitely has impacted them.
So yeah, we have a Frank Solich team who does what Frank Solich teams do, and that they're pretty good. This was the year they were supposed to be really good. I was unaware their running backs were all out. Yeah, this could be interesting. It's in Buffalo, and this is a series that has not been won by the road team since Turner Gill was our coach, and we weren't the road team. So, we have 10 years. I mean, under Jeff Quinn, Ohio never managed to beat us at home. Let's just throw that out there. This is a big game. If we had beaten Miami, this wouldn't be such a big game. But I think all of us had Buffalo at 3-3 at this point.
I did not.
You did not? Well, you're the pessimist. I don't listen to you.
Yeah. That's fine.
I had Buffalo. It's weird. If Buffalo wins this, though, they'll be 3-3, but they will have flipped all the games. Like, I thought we would beat Liberty and lose to Temple. I thought we would beat Miami and lose to Ohio. So if they actually can pull this off, we'll be right where I thought we would need to be for a good run at the season. But the loss to Miami really makes this kind of a must-win game if we want to contend for the East. Like, if we lose this game, we're 0-2 in the conference, and we've lost to the 2 teams likely to finish 1-2 in the East. So you can't stress how important this game is for Buffalo, and we don't have any word on whether Matt Myers will be playing. I didn't see any developments today. I know he hadn't practiced as of yesterday.
I just went through Rachel Lindsay's Twitter feed. There was nothing new. Well, I'm sorry, no, 11 hours ago, still today. 11 hours ago, she said he didn't practice today. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think Van Treese can be a game manager.
I think Van Treese can do more than what what's his name, Myers did against Miami.
Yeah, when we
I don't mean that to trash on Meyer. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, Myers looked like a freshman quarterback getting pardon my language, getting the crap beat out of him against Miami. Like I can't fault Myers too much for that game.
No, and I don't either. I think Van Treese can get more than 58 yards or whatever it was.
I think Van Treese is in that whole game is probably very similar.
Yes, and I also am not. I don't think it's a huge drop off. Like if this is what we're working with, we weren't sure who the starter was going to be until a week before the season.
You've seen a lot more of these guys up close than I have from being at the games. My impression of the main difference between Van Treese and Myers is that Myers is a little more of a threat to run, not a ton, but a little more of a threat to run, and then he's got a little more power on the passes. That's kind of my main assumption. Am I right?
I don't think Kyle Van Treese has ever really been put in some of the positions to run that Matt Myers has while he's here, but I would say that Matt Myers is definitely a lot more capable on the ground. So if we're with Van Treese, maybe I'm wrong. I haven't really seen him do it yet at Buffalo, but I can't imagine that they do as much of the read option stuff that they've given Myers. But also, even at the end of the Miami game when we were kind of in the hurry up when we were trying to get down the field, I thought that Kyle Van Treese connected on a couple passes that not that Myers couldn't make, but I feel like watching him, you feel like he's the more experienced quarterback, just standing in against pressure and making the passes you need to.
I don't feel like they're really coming at him like they came at Myers the whole game.
No, probably not. Playing more conservatively, which is fair, but maybe that's because of the fact that my fear was that they would say they need to stop the run, or like this whole season is that teams need to sell out to stop the run, and they can also put pressure on the quarterback in the same way, bringing the blitz. And I don't know if they were just playing more conservative because they were up and they didn't want to do anything stupid, or if because maybe they respected Van Treese a little bit more in the passing game. So it'll be interesting to find out. I think Myers definitely has the higher ceiling, but I don't hate putting Van Treese in at this point where he's just more experienced, and I feel like he has a higher floor with our run game already and our defense showing that they're capable of making some plays. I think that we can, at least get to bowl eligibility if we can just have consistent quarterback play, which, it's not all Myers' fault with some of the pressure and stuff, but we'll see. Van Treese has never really gotten a huge shot at Buffalo. So
I went through. He's not done much of anything, and that's just because he was behind Tyree, and then this year he had Myers. He did have a start. I think it was at a start or two.
Two his freshman year.
Yeah, when both Jackson and
Anderson
were hurt. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And our quick comment on Bull Run. RMA, it's not even funny to ironically call UCF the national champion. RMA said on Bull Run that Pitt's in a similar situation to Buffalo in that they lost by a touchdown to Penn State and beat the national champion and just barely beat an FCS team. UCF is dang good, but Danny White publicity aside. And I am very envious of the lazy river they're going to get around their stadium. So, there is that. But back to the Van Treese situation. I'm hoping, because the one thing Lance Leipold and his staff are good at is game planning. You can argue against their halftime adjustment spiel, like there's arguments to be made, but he does a good job preparing for the team he has against the team he's playing. So I'm hoping that they'll come out strong against Ohio State and maybe adjust the game plan. It might suit us well because I don't think Van Treese has the power, the power and accuracy that Myers has throwing the ball, which might mean we favor short mid-range passes, which is what you need to do against defenses that stack the box and decide to sell out to the run.
I also outside of Antonio Nunn, I don't know that we have the receivers to be making, a lot of plays downfield. So I think this team has always kind of had to rely on moving the chains in these long sustained drives, which is fine. So maybe Van Treese is better suited for what we have
Well,
We'll see.
Cowbell's back and healthy, and he's pretty good for 10 to 15-yard passes. Just because of his size, he's not going to burn you for 50 yards, unless it's a perfect situation. But
except for Robert Morris, where they completely blew the coverage and left him like.
Yeah, it's an FCS. We don't count that. But Ohio, the strength of their team is their defense. Solich is a solid coach. Say what you want to say about the man. He retired to Athens and decided to keep coaching football when he was there. Does the home jinx work? Does UB beat Ohio at home because of the jinx? And is the jinx real? I've seen our really good teams get slaughtered in Ohio, and I've seen their really good teams lose in Buffalo.
9 years is real. That's something. Does it have predictive value? I don't know, but it's
it's something.
I think the last time they won it was a Thursday night game, and Buffalo almost won that game, if I remember right. There was a late penalty on one of the UB offensive line.
2009.
Yeah, it was close. We were driving late in the game, and there was some stupid penalty on one of the linemen.
I got it.
Lineman West or something.
Ohio kicked a field goal with a minute to go to win 27-24.
Yeah, they were driving and made a couple bad calls. Unturner Gill-like finish to the game.
Oh, and we threw an interception with we got the ball back and
Maynard. Yeah,
moved 9 plays in a minute. Oh wait, hold on. No, that's how we gave them the ball. We threw an interception, and they just kneeled down and kicked a field goal, and that was it. That seems awful.
Yeah, it was a bad game.
I don't remember this at all.
So I'm hoping history doesn't repeat itself because this is a UB wins this game.
Great radio.
UB wins this game, and they're set up really well. They're set up really well for bowl run. Akron lost to UMass. That's all you got to say. Akron lost handily to UMass, which means they're easily the worst FBS team.
The big Vox SB Nation folks who only really engage with G5 schools to point and laugh at how bad they are. We're making a big show of that all weekend about by the Massey ratings. Those were the bottom 2 teams, and once every couple of years you get a game between the bottom 2 teams, and that's an interesting thing, especially coming from a program that was in the ESPN bottom 10 all the time, but it felt very point and laugh.
It really did.
And that said, Akron's terrible, and I expect to beat them.
After the Liberty loss, I was really thinking, damn, this could be the year. We haven't been in the bottom 10 forever. I remember when we were a fixture there. I remember not being in the bottom 10 was
we haven't been there since Quinn's 2-10 year. That's the last time we were there.
That would be 2012, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Which Quinn 2-10 year? So we're way ahead, and one of the reasons we're way ahead is because I thought we'd skip over a lot of the content and kind of talk about some California legislation, which is already making waves everywhere. You guys got anything else you want to dump on Ohio? Dump on Ohio. We can always make time for dumping on the Bobcats.
They suck.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt.
No, I literally just.
Matt was done pitching.
Yeah, sorry, I got preoccupied with the Excel sheet, but I don't know. After looking into them more, I just don't know if I feel like they were overhyped coming into the season, and not having a win against an FBS team yet they played some pretty good teams, but it's if you should be the
good teams.
Yeah, but if I don't know, it just feels like if you're really that MAC runaway favorite, you should probably pull at least one of those games out. So at home, I think we're only a couple point underdogs. I think this is a winnable game, and it kind of feels like the seesaw is swinging the other way from bad UB to good UB back at home. So we'll see. And this really is a deciding game. I feel like for the MAC East
it's
at least.
It's a must-win if you want to compete for the East, and it might be a must-win if you want to bowl.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to pull up. I have an Excel sheet here where I was trying to pull up.
We have Akron. Kent show they can move. Kent's weird. I can't put a finger on Kent. they're not going to win a lot of games this year, but their offense has a potential to put up some numbers.
Yeah.
They can move the ball, which means if you get in a firefight with them, they could be a team that up and bites a better MAC team or two this year. Bowling Green, probably almost certainly a win, unless we really cough up a hairball.
I don't know if I'm as comfortable saying that right now. Ask me next week when the seesaw goes the other way, right?
Well, again, unless we cough up if we cough up a hairball, we can lose to anybody. We're not good enough to beat anybody on an off day. We need to play our game. But I don't think Bowling Green on a good day beats us on a good day.
I agree with that.
And Bowling Green, I think, is pretty close to that Akron tier of just like garbage teams to see. I think Kent State is probably like a tier above them, but even them we should probably beat if we're playing well. And CMU too isn't great. So we have like probably the 4 bottom MAC teams.
I don't know. I think I became a MAC fan at the wrong time. I became a MAC fan when CMU were like world beaters.
Yeah, through 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and even in their off years, they've been decent-ish. Kind of like EMU's good years is like a CMU bad year. That's kind of the way it's been. And so I never count a game against CMU as one we should win. The last time I did that, they made Jeff Quinn look silly. So
yeah, I think they've had some decent teams. I just don't know if this is a decent team from what I've seen. But we'll find out. And then also, okay, so
Western kind of exposed them. But
Western is probably 1 or 2 behind Toledo, I think, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so I got my Excel sheet. If we win this game, we have about a 76% chance of bowling, and if we lose, it'll be 39% chance. So
that's not as bad as I would have expected for a 2-4 team.
Well,
it speaks to how weak
it's because of Akron, Bowling Green,
Bowling Green,
and CMU.
Yeah,
if we lose, Akron, Kent, Bowling Green get us up to 5.
Right, and so EMU even almost lost an FCS team. Like they also beat Illinois for whatever that's worth, but they're also one of those.
Definitely, I hear you both. I think what you're saying probably makes a heck of a lot more sense than what I'm going to say. I'm prepared for the morale to fall off a cliff if we lose this one. We've talked already, and we don't need to re-legislate it. What I think of the team attitude and the morale happened towards the end of the year last year. Yeah. And if we lose this one, I'm prepared to really, put the plywood in the windows and get bread and water.
That's what kind of killed me in the Miami game. I said it in the comment section at one point. It's like, this team has no energy. Like it just, and that's the coach's job. I'm sorry, these are not professional athletes. These are college kids. It's your job to get.
He's not a guy that makes me excited, and I want to be excited.
But that's okay. But then that's okay. If you're a head coach, you're going to have dispositions and strengths and weaknesses. Your assistant coaches need to pick up. Turner Gill was the nice.
Yeah, I knew this is where you're going.
Yeah, Turner Gill was the nice guy. Conrad gave us a lot of good insight to this back in the day. Gill was like the super. He had hard ass assistants. His assistants would make players feel awful. They'd go to Gill, and Gill would be like, "Yeah, they're there," and it could work that way, or it could work the other way, where Gill, the head coach is a hard ass, but one of the coaches there on each of the units has to start to be like, "Look, if I can't get these guys fired up," and I don't blame the players. I do to a small degree, but they're college kids.
Yeah.
I'll never blame them for anything as long as they're just college kids playing a game for a scholarship. I refuse to go down that path. Coaches are paid. They get the blame. And what was the one thing after the Temple game? I never gave a shout out to Rod Carey for that. He refused to let his players do interviews after Temple lost to us.
Yeah.
And he came out and said, "It's all my fault. I did not have the team up for this game." And I thought that was a huge thing for a coach to do. I have a lot of respect to a coach who I dislike on the general principle. He has spanked us around for years. Now, speaking of paid professional players, let's jump off of the upcoming opponent. We'll get to predictions later and talk about California and how they just completely blew up amateur athletics as we know it. But did they? Back in the day, I published an article years ago, I think, when we used to have much more active and frequent debate about this subject when we had editorial members who had a passion for it, about players playing semi-pro or playing minor league or other forms of to earn money. And I'm 100% against college players being paid. And I know a lot of the people watching, I know a lot of the editors, a lot of the commenters are going to disagree with me. I'm sorry if you want to get paid. What we need is a proper minor league system. I am not against players making money. I'm against the colleges paying them. And I think California, when I first heard about this, I was cringing. But the more I settle on it, the more I realize my cringe was based on the fact that this could probably hurt mid-majors. And that's not fair for me. It shouldn't matter that it could hurt mid-majors. I think California did the right thing. If you're not aware, California passed a bill that said players can profit from their images. They can go out and hire an agent and do commercials. EA Sports can go out and say, look, we want to make a college football game and put you in it. And they can make deals with people for this privilege. And those players can make money off of their faces and their names and what they do on the field. Now, this is going to hit all kinds of wrinkles because they're not going to be able to use team names. They're not going to be able to say, I'm Matt Myers of the UB Bulls. Come on down to the Chrysler dealership and buy a car. Like I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that needs to shake out on this. But in principle, I think it's the right thing. And I don't know if you guys are going to disagree with me at all. I'm generally the old miser. So I think you guys are probably a lot more excited about this than I was even initially. Zach, what are your thoughts?
So a few things. I think this is a good first step. I think you have to get, or you don't have to, but like I really am in favor of people getting paid for their likeness, just because I don't think it's fair to say you can't earn money on the side for the value that you provide. But I think, and I'm kind of torn on the idea of colleges paying players, just because I don't know how sustainable it is for like by far the majority of colleges. But on the other hand,
the majority of athletes.
Yeah. So that.
Do you pay your female rowers? Like, I mean, that's my big thing with paying athletes. Do you pay your female rowers?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm kind of torn, because it's hard to see, like Penn State, for example, where they're selling 105,000 tickets per game. It's like, obviously there's money being made here and they are generating, value for the university. So it feels like there should be a way to compensate them, but that's just so much messier than, just saying get what you can get on the side. So I think this is a good first step. And then, I mean, maybe down the road you can look at that, but it just, I'm not going to pretend I know the right way to do that. It feels like something that should happen in my opinion, but I also understand if they were to never go down that road. On the other hand, California specifically, I'm interested to see what happens with the NCAA. I think it's good for the cause that it's California, just because I think it was 25 like D1 basketball schools like just general D1 schools are in California, and I think that's just like such a I can't imagine the NCAA trying to really lay it on California because of the fact that they just represent such a massive amount of the U.S. population, the D1 schools, and then even like say Oregon, like they're in the Pac-12, but if you take out three or four, how many of there is of their conference opponents, rivals, I think it really just shakes things up for like the entire West Coast. So I can't see how the NCAA would just say get out and don't come back. I just think that's way too much of a loss for them.
See, Matt, what do you think?
I don't think this changes much. I think in large part it will bring some things that already happen above board. And I think that even if we brought everything that happened above board, it wouldn't change very much. I think realistically what happens right now is there's plenty of bagmen, and they exist, and they're not paying the third string quarterback in Columbus, Ohio. And the third string quarterback in Columbus, Ohio, isn't going to be someone who's going to be able to leverage his fame or his name for some sort of stipend. I just don't think it's going to change. I think it's a moral thing. I've kind of shared with you guys that when I was at Boston College, we had a women's basketball player who had been on American Idol and kind of had to put her recording career on hold while while she was playing, and being the type of person and career that's on American Idol, 3 years from then she didn't have the public cash it to get back into the industry. Really, you have stories of families not being able to do things, of like guys having to take the monetization off their blogs or their whatever. Like it
was the UCF YouTube channel, I think.
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah. And I think California is where it's always going to come from. To Zach's point, I don't think it changes much. I'm not terribly excited about it for that reason. I think that I don't think it's pay for play right now. I don't. I think it could get there. Sorry, Tim. I had to say that. I think if right now it means that, if it means that the quarterback at Stanford or the women's soccer team at Stanford is the best women's soccer team in the country, if it means they can put on a camp and make a little bit of spending money out of putting on a camp, I think that's the type of thing we're going to see a lot more of.
See, I don't think it's going to lead to that.
I think it will. I think that's
I'll tell you why. Because that involves the university, not the athletes.
Well, they can do it off. They can.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, this is going to open up a whole can of worms into where the lines are.
Sure. And I think that all the lines are being crossed anyway. So, like, what does it matter? If people are going from A to H, what's the point of the line being between A and B or being between G and or between F and G? That's my attitude.
Yeah, in a minute or two, I want to talk about what you're going to is what will it do to the greater ecosystem. I have some thoughts on that. I think you're probably right, but I think there's some caveats in there. To Zach's point about how does the NCAA deal with this? I think they missed their window. I think the NCAA, and everyone's like, oh, there's 25 teams. Look, no one cares about Cal Poly. I'm sorry. Cal Poly does not. There are like 4 colleges that matter in California. Right? I mean, seriously, that's it. Like, no one cares about Youngstown State. They're not driving anything in Ohio. If the NCAA had come out and said, the minute this passed, look, no more NCAA championship games, no more conference championship games, none of this stuff in this state anymore, I think they might have been able to nip it in the bud, but it's too late. It's done because now Pennsylvania is looking at it. I saw an article in the news. Minnesota is looking into it.
I think Ohio too, and maybe New York too. I feel like as well.
If the NCAA wanted to stop this, they were horribly slow in getting around to it. And again, I don't know that it's right to stop it. I've been looking for a compromise for years, and my gut was like, oh God, because I don't want professional college sports. I don't buy the argument that 100,000 people showing up at a Penn State game is for the Penn State quarterback. Because if that quarterback had went to Alabama and Penn State brought in a different quarterback, 100,000 people would have went. They are there for the college.
I agree. I think it. I mean, maybe not for the specific quarterback, but if the team as a whole is to fall off the map, I think you see a significant decline in attendance, and I think you can see that in Power Fives.
What was Michigan's attendance in a bad year? Michigan's had some bad years recently. What are they
Let's
doing? 8,000 instead of 100,000?
That's a good question. Let's check.
So I guess that's my point is, and I'd like to think I'm kind of middle on the road on this issue. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm way over to one side and I just don't realize it. But a lot of people are like, oh, look at all the money they earn for the college. And for my aspect, for me personally, maybe this is just me projecting, I don't root for Buffalo because of who came here, right? If the team loses, I'll root for them. If the team wins, I'll root for them. If everyone we have for football decommits this year and we get a whole new class, it's not going to affect me in the least bit. I root for the Chicago Bears because Khalil Mack plays. Right. I don't root for UV because I root for the players because they are students at Buffalo, and I want the best for them. And whether it was a whole different cast of people, or whether they sucked, or whether they win 12 games this year, I'm going to root for them just the same. And I think most college fans are like that. Not all, but most are like that. So that's why I've always not bought the argument that like these kids are making money for the colleges. No, these kids are getting a free education, and the colleges are making money because of sports. It's a mutual relationship. However, I will be the first to say that a lot of what Matt brought up is dead right. Matt brought up not being able to monetize themselves, having the NCAA clamp down on them for YouTube channels. Stress is put on families, and I think that's wrong. And I think California kind of drew a really good line here, and I hope it's not, quote, a first step, as Zach said, towards colleges paying kids, because that's the end of college sports. And if that's what it is, so be it. I mean, it's not going to be the end of my life, but the NCAA is not going to fix this. They've waited too long. Too many states are now saying we're going to do it too. And while I think the NCAA certainly could have burned California, cut off their nose to spite their face, I don't think they could burn California and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Minnesota and New York and anyone else talking about it. Matt, you're muted. Let me try to unmute you. I saw you trying to talk.
No, it's probably better that I was asked.
Yeah, I saw you get really, really animated before I said, but Matt has a point.
I said it, and Tim just kept rolling like, wow, that was stone cold from Tim. I was just gonna quibble. I've never liked the idea of calling it a free education, but that's beside the point for now. I think the NLI is a contract. I don't think it's free. I think there's validity to why people say you're getting something, but that's beside the point here. And it was probably better that I didn't actually get right into the middle of that with that. Yeah, I think you brought up something that I mostly agree with everything you said. I want to highlight some families are really it's really difficult to, even if they're athletes, they're still in hard straits to make things work. And there are college athletes who, in the stretch between college football players, in the stretch between summer ball when their housing is paid for, and they don't have food for a week. Sometimes they don't have housing for a week. They don't. And if you don't have the resources, you're really in a bind there. At some schools, the training table food option doesn't cover all the meal. And you can't work another job when you're a D1 athlete, at least in football.
Technically, you can.
I mean, time wise.
Yeah. I mean, there are practicalities to it that, of course, played.
Yes, that's what I meant.
I think you fix those practicalities, right?
Yes.
And a lot of what you're talking about, I don't think requires pay for play.
No.
It talks about the NCAA coming in and God help them, do something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Say, look, if the person's a D1 athlete, you need to give them food all year round.
And this is kind of what I was getting at with the idea of hey, Stanford's women's soccer could get together and do something. Down here in the Carolinas, you could see a basketball camp and people would come out for a lacrosse camp. And if that means, if a guy starts his own T-shirt business,
Mm-hmm.
if Javon McCray says, I'm the Kraken, I'm going to make Kraken T-shirts, and that means that he's got $30 more a week, to cover food. That's not the stuff that we need to worry about. And I'm glad that we're moving towards a direction where we're not going to.
Yeah, and that's why, and again, for the last time, that's why I love this bill, because, and I've come to love it. And you guys saw my reaction by the water cooler. By the water cooler, when this happened, I was pissed. But the more I've had time to think about it, the more I realize that this is right. This is giving them control of themselves. It's not about pay for play. And now to get to the other part I was talking about, where we're at, this will burn some colleges pretty badly. And honestly, the ones that it's going to burn are mid-majors in crappy little podunk towns where they're not the big news. This is not going to hurt. Honestly, this could help Buffalo. If it plays out well, Buffalo is one of the top, if not one of the top 50 markets, dang near one of the top 50 markets. We are the only college sports in town for football And for all intents and purposes, we're really the only college game in town for basketball. Yes, Syracuse is a huge name, but they're 3 hours away, 4 hours away. They don't carry the name Buffalo. St. Bonaventure is St. Bonaventure, which means they have a loyal following, which is a lot smaller than they'd like you to believe. And Canisius and Niagara got nothing. Outside of, Reggie Witherspoon is a very recognizable name. So this will help, I think. This, depending on how it plays out, this could help a school like Buffalo if New York State were to adopt a similar policy, because Buffalo could say, look, we have, about 1 million people in our metro area, a lot of small businesses. These, especially for a program like UB basketball, it's now much more recognizable. How many people in Buffalo knew who CJ Massenberg was last year?
Well,
someone posted, was that you, Zach, that posted on Twitter the image of like more Buffalo shirts than Syracuse shirts and a lot more dicks?
Ramo sent that to us and I replied to it or something, but yeah, that was cool to see.
So my only concern is that this will completely legitimize Bagman. Right, Matt's right. No business will pay the third string quarterback for Ohio State. However, if that third string quarterback happened to be the guy that they were after in the first place, but just didn't work out, he certainly could end up with a Bagman saying, "Oh, I happen to own an auto dealership," and I mean, so it could legitimize that process, I suppose. But that's not for me to worry about.
And two things. I mean, I think that's stuff that's already happening. So if it just, I don't know. I think it's easier to monitor this way, for one, and for two, it's just like, if you're worth that money and they think that, then get your money. But that still doesn't even affect Buffalo, because we're not getting those top 5 guys that could go straight to the NBA or to the NFL or whatever anyways. So I think it basically just brings it above the table, and then we don't have people going to jail like there has been in the I don't know if you've seen the college basketball trials where there's sneaker people going to jail for paying kids, but
they should.
You think so?
No, I know the kids shouldn't go to jail. The people who paid them should go to jail because they brought the kids into something that could jeopardize their scholarships and their future. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have some sympathy for the kids in those situations. I have no sympathy for the adults in those situations.
Yeah, I see. I guess I see your point. Yeah. I think the angle from the courts was that they were defrauding the school somehow by I don't know.
It has something to do with federal money, which is right.
It was communications. Yeah, it was
something to do with grant money. That once the grant money was, that's how the FBI got in, right? Yeah. I don't. We're not going to get to a good place with it here, but yeah, you know, I really think that like there are already a plausible set of situations in like the pure don't pay anyone anything world in which an athlete who's good enough to play at like somewhere like Illinois, we might be able to get him. We might be able to get Buffalo in either sport. An athlete who's got an offer from Illinois. I don't think Illinois being able to maybe give more money in general and Buffalo being able to give some money, but probably not as much as Illinois can, is going to be as big a difference for that type of player than just the fact that at Buffalo he's more likely to get playing time. If I think it helps us, I think it hurts us less than it hurts Ohio. It hurts us less than it hurts Youngstown State.
That's what I mean. Like there will be the tiny mid majors.
Yeah, I think for us, relative to
the MAC and Sun Belt and Conference USA level teams, in towns that just don't have the base
to actually sell things to
sell things, like or the consumer base or the business base to sell things. You know who this will be? This is going to be a boom for Minnesota. A lot of people don't realize the number of Fortune 500 companies and crap that sit. I mean, gosh, I see PJ Fleck's face every place I go. It's so bad. It's like torture.
I just think if we're in with a guy who's got, an offer from Rutgers, maybe interest in BC. These are guys that football wise we've recruited in the past. A couple other MAC offers. I think our standings relative to the other MAC teams are about the same as they've always been, maybe a little bit better. And I think our standings relative to the P5 teams are about what they've been in terms of how does it affect UB. We might get someone new that we wouldn't have gotten in the past with us, but I don't think it's going to like overhaul the way that we can build our teams. And I don't think it's good. I don't think this is going to mean we get tons more talent.
Now here's what I've been rolling around my head thinking. Like, I don't think this will affect the football landscape much, but I think it could really smash hoops up. Like, I think
hoops, you could put all your eggs in one player, and once you get them, they play 36 minutes a night.
Or two or three. I mean, that's all you need. I mean, really. And again, I don't think it's going to lift up mid majors. I think it's going to hurt mid majors as far as hoops.
Well, what if you look at something like we've been watching Stu Riddle in soccer in Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky had a huge infusion of soccer investment. What if Grand Canyon, the first year we played them with Thunder Dan, huge investment. Someone like Liberty could. Maybe I shouldn't say this. It's not so much Liberty, it's any school, and I shouldn't draw this comparison with Liberty, so forget I ever said that school. Let me think of someone who's not. Valparaiso could pull a Qatar and buy all the Brazilian volleyball players and give them passports and say, look at us, now we win Olympic medals. Like you could see Valparaiso get one huge donor who says, my money is going to it. I didn't want to compare Liberty to Qatar because we've had conversations. At any rate,
why did you bring up Qatar? You could have said like Luxembourg.
No, because Qatar made a real athletic strategy in their Ministry of Sport to recruit the third and fourth tier sand volleyball players from Brazil and things like that, and get people.
Okay.
And then say, look at us, we've won a bronze medal in beach volleyball. Okay. And so I'm saying, if you get one big donor, and I was thinking Liberty because the Falwells are wealthy, who says this is it, like we can do this now, let's go and do it. That's how I could see the mid-major landscape really taking advantage of this in basketball.
But that's a very small number of teams. I mean, yes. And let's be honest, what Liberty can do, yes, I mean Liberty, pales in comparison to what North Carolina can do, to what Duke can do, to what Notre Dame can do, to what Villanova could do, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, basketball is a lot more tiered than football. Everyone talks about how football, it's pointless being a mid-major football. Mid-major football programs can come along quite nicely. Boise State proved that, right? I mean, hell, Northern Illinois has proved that. I mean, they haven't been world beaters like Boise State, but they've been year in and year out 8, 9, 10 win teams. Basketball, it's a lot harder to do that, and this will make it even harder. Because we got lucky with CJ Massenberg. Nobody wanted him. Like, we recruited him, and I think he had one other offer or something.
San Francisco.
But you look at the class that Nate Oates had put together before it dissolved. There was a lot of competition with P5 schools for those athletes.
They pretty much all went to P5s after, too.
They all went to P5s. And, especially with the route of going JUCO, which UB has done very effectively, both in terms of talent and bringing in kids that manage to not cause trouble at the school. All of a sudden, was it you're getting accused of having bag men by idiots on Reddit?
From Olean.
I think that was like one guy too. Like, I don't know where that came from.
I mean, we asked him. I went in there and I said, "Where? What?"
Yeah, no, everyone knows it. Okay, where? Just they do. Yeah. But getting guys who are getting offers from Syracuse to come here to JUCOs gets harder when now Syracuse can have a bad guy say, "Oh, and by the way, I'm going to sign a contract with you to use your name in advertising on a street bench." On a bus bench,
and a basketball team being smaller, they could also do a group. A business probably isn't going to pay for 105 football players, but they can do 13 basketball guys as a group.
It only takes a couple. It only takes losing a couple or gaining a couple players to turn your team from an average team into a team that can make a run.
What I'm saying is that a bench warmer might even have the opportunity. A guy who gets 10 minutes a night on Syracuse basketball, still Syracuse basketball in Syracuse, and could, go and jump on a mattress and sell mattresses,
Yeah. But at this point, this is all kind of speculation about how it's going to play. It's going to
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is it's going to happen. This is when we talked years ago about the NCAA, should the NCAA let college athletes play minor league sports, amateur sports that pay, there's football leagues that pay you very modest sums of money that pop up every now and again. Should the NCAA let their, and I took the position then that they should, because it's the students' right to, do what they want. I never saw this one coming in a million years. I always thought when people brought up, oh no, advertising, it's, oh yeah, but here we are. It's going to happen. California has done it. The NCAA was too slow to respond. And right now for the NCAA to nip this in the bud, they would have to burn the forest down. Like they would have to literally say, hey, are you a state that doesn't want to do this? Then you get all the NCAA championship games. Too late. So now the question is, have you guys, Zach, being in New York, have you seen anything about this in New York State?
I think I saw one random congressman propose something, but I don't think it's anything I don't know. I feel like there's always stuff being proposed that's wild just to make some news. So I haven't seen anything of substance yet, but.
Well, if ever there was a time where I would be thankful for Syracuse having way the hell too much influence in Albany, this would be it. Syracuse manages to just get far too much for what a private school in New York State should get versus UB from the state. But finally, this is something that would benefit Buffalo. I think Syracuse mostly, but I think Buffalo and probably Stony Brook would stand to benefit the most from this, of the NCAA teams in New York State. And Stony Brook has a state assembly critter in their back pocket who does dirty deeds for them as well. I won't go so far as to call him a bagman, but I will say there's a stadium, a Stony Brook named for him. So, all right. I think we kind of beat that into the ground. It is interesting, and I just wanted to really dig into it because my opinion on it has changed so much in the past 3 days. That I thought maybe some other people had thoughts on it too. All right. Oh, not sign off. Stop it. Predictions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Dave wanted to be here, but had to go to bed, and he's busy at traveling, and that takes a lot out of folks once you get to our ages. And our ages meaning me and Dave, not the two young guys on the screen with me. Matt, I'm going to throw you under the bus first this week.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take it. Just not feeling good.
Getting canned by Miami didn't raise your opinion of this program, huh?
Well, last week I let Zach talk me into, hey, there are all these injuries, I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll be able to control the trenches, and we did not. We did not.
My picks have been generally bad so far, so just ignore me.
And then Zach, being who he is, he went and changed his pick.
I didn't change my pick.
Last week was 27-20, 3 or something, 27-20.
Did I?
And then what you put in the comments was different, and that let you jump in the lead over me because I listened to you, and you went and unconsciously maybe changed.
If I did that, it was on accident because I didn't get around to posting it until the day after. I went back and watched the video too, so I don't know how I did that because I meant to make it the same. Well,
well, comments about video, but comments always. If you guys don't post comments, I'll come back and look at this and try to find it. But if you put something in the comments, that always takes precedent.
Oh, well, let me write it down so that I don't make you come back and look at it then.
Yeah, but the other times I've gone directly to it and commented it, but yeah, last week I went back and apparently I got it wrong and it helped me, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I know. Now you lead the editors pool. Matt.
Yeah.
I gotta say, we gave Miami a heck of a good field position last week, and
brutal.
The defense could be better, but it was not as bad as the offense. So I may be dialing back my doom and gloom a little, but I think I'm destined this season just to swing wildly back and forth. And so I'm going Ohio 28, Buffalo 13. And that's probably an overreaction.
Wow.
That's probably an overreaction. I think
what did pessimistic Matt have to say?
As much as Zach talked me into, hey, like O'Rourke's supporting cast is mostly gone, it's still Nathan O'Rourke, who was pretty good last year and now has another year of experience under his belt.
I'm not listening to Zach on those anymore.
Fair enough.
Zach pours poison in the air. All right, Zach.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty lost on this one. I feel like it should swing the other way this game. So I'm gonna go 20 UB 24, Ohio 21. I think that'll be my pick. I don't know. Just the way things have been up and down, how different we looked at home on the road, and just Ohio, I think, being generally overhyped. I'm hoping that they come out motivated like it looked like they did after the Liberty loss, and they beat up on Temple at home. So maybe we see something similar. So I'm hoping we pull out a win. It's got to be a win for bowl eligibility at MAC East hopes. So 24-21.
All right. So I'm going to say two things that I think are going to shape this game. One will be the home field curse, or home field advantage that exists in the series. Two will be, I think if Van Treese is your starting quarterback, the coaching staff is going to be forced to make the adjustments they should have made in the second half of the Miami game.
That makes an awful lot of sense, Tim.
What?
That makes an awful lot of sense.
Hey, hope springs eternal. So I think Buffalo pulls out a, I'm going to say 31-28 win. And again, I think we will control on the ground. And I think that the UB right now, Gil Willing is practicing screenplays and practicing short routes to cover for what will be a change in the offense that will shape the pace of the game. 31-28 Buffalo. And that is completely a homer pick. All right. We don't have time for three things Tim learned because Tim would go for 3 minutes while he tried to figure out what he's learned today. So we're just going to do the sign off because it's been now an hour and 2 minutes, and my East Coast brethren are getting up on midnight, and they have jobs and stuff to do, whereas my job doesn't start for another hour. So on behalf of Matt and Zach, good night, guys. Keep following Bull Run this week, and have a great week. Go Bulls.